busy days. You've been promoting this film really ever since, what, Venice last year, I think, on and off?
On and off.
Yeah, on and off. It feels like a lifetime ago now.
So you made this in 2017, I think.
Yeah.
Right? Wow. So can you remember things? If I ask you questions, am I going to stump you?
No, it's definitely seared in there.
I think for all of us as well, actually. So tell me, how did this start for you? Were you fans of the Babadook? You know, were you kind of keen to meet Jennifer Kent, or was it her reaching out to you? How did it happen?
I got the script sent to me by my agent, like with both projects, and then I read it. I started reading it, instantly fell in love with it. I just thought that it, you know, the more I read, I thought this feels like it's trying to be more than just an entertainment piece. It feels like it's trying to be something a bit more profound than that. And then I put myself on tape, sent a video of myself singing an Irish ballad. And then I Skyped with Jen. But the interesting thing is that I had so much to do that day with other tapes that I just read enough of the script to give me context for the scenes that I was doing. And then I thought, well, if it goes well, they'll ask me to sing, so I might as well sing the song. And when I finished reading the script, when I heard Jen wanted to Skype with me, it was the song that Claire sings in the bar when she confronts Hawkins. And Jen was like, I'm so impressed you learned that song. And I said, I could lie, but it's actually more serendipitous than that. And yeah, so then I did a callback, and it was a long time before we started shooting. But I auditioned in February of 2016, so it's been a journey.
But it's clearly fate taking a hand, though. Fate definitely wanted you to have that role.
I also fought my butt off for it.
I'm just saying, you sang the right song. Like, what are the chances?
Yeah, no, that did feel like a little nice serendipitous moment. But yeah.
And how about you, Sam?
My partner at the time was pregnant with my child, and I think I read to page 20, and there was a certain scene, and I was like, ooh. You know, this is. I couldn't decide whether I wanted to continue reading or stop there, and I decided to keep reading, and I'm so glad I did. So it was the script that drew me in first. I hadn't seen the Babadook at this point, and I had a Skype with Jen, and she quite literally told me over Skype that I was wrong for the part. I've never been in an audition and been told that I'm wrong. But she was like, I don't, you know, you're too nice, and you're too sweet, and you look too nice, that it's just not, it's not going to work. She said I was incredibly good looking. But she just sort of said that I wasn't as physically imposing. I think he was also originally written as someone in his early 40s. So I think she had sort of been seeing lots of different people from all sort of walks of life, really. She still gave me the opportunity to audition, and we had a massive sit-down discussion. And I strangely said, and I don't regret it, but I said I can relate to him in many ways. Not all the ways, but I think I think there was just I sort of, for me, I sensed the vulnerability in him, and that was what I think triggered her reasoning for casting me. I think there was the vulnerable, the human side of him is something that, you know, someone who is ambitious, and you know, I didn't have a rough upbringing, but I feel like I can relate to people that having had my experience of growing up. I feel like there was just, I had an in, I'm not sure how or why I understood him to an extent. There was definitely a lot more to explore and a lot more to learn, but there was a vulnerability which I think she saw in me that she hadn't seen in many of the other portrayals, I guess. But yeah, she gave me the opportunity she pushed me in the audition, and I remember crying at the end of it, and she was like, wow, it obviously is going to be difficult, ride. Are you sure you're ready for this? I was like, I'm so ready for this, you know. I wasn't ready for that.
I do want to ask you both about your characters, because I feel like they're both very, very layered, complicated people, because, you know, when we meet Claire, you know, she behaves at that sort of, those layers.
Yeah, I thought it was, when I read the script, I just realised instantly that Claire was, you know, we always hear about like strong female characters, which is great, but frequently they're also, I find, almost unattainable. Like there are these, I'm like, I don't think I'm ever going to be that person, so I find it difficult to relate. You know, she's human, and so therefore very flawed. She's a product of her society and of her upbringing. She's horrifically racist at the beginning, and has to go on this journey of discovering her own ignorance and having her eyes opened and essentially being saved by the very person that she feared and hated from the beginning. She's incredibly resilient and at times fragile and vulnerable and full of this rage. So yeah, it was definitely, and someone who's also grappling with the idea of, oh, hello. Someone with the, weird. So someone who's grappling with the idea of actually, do I want to keep going? Do I want to survive? All of these things. And so I was really quite looking forward to portraying her, not only because as an actor, obviously, to get the opportunity to play a character like her is so rare, but to really explore this relationship with Billy, which for me is the absolute heart of this film. And, you know, it's through her relationship with him that she decides to choose the road of, you know, empathy and thus saving herself. But yeah, she was definitely someone you have to get to grips with at the beginning. And I think, you know, Jen was hyper aware that I was feeling a bit angsty about the early stages of Claire from the point of view of how horrific she can be with Billy. But so she got Bakeley down from Elko Island, where he's from, and we just workshopped and hung out loads together so that we became really, really good friends, because he'd never acted before, shockingly. It's amazing. And so we became really, really good friends, and we trusted each other, and so he knew, you know, we felt, you know, I felt that he knew that I cared about him very deeply, and so we could do these awful scenes without him, you know, questioning the motives.
It's the way you can call your friends names that you would never call a stranger.
Yeah.
It's a little bit.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I don't think I'd still use these ones, but yeah, but she's, and also I just wanted to explore the journey of PTSD that is so rarely portrayed, I think, after the horrors that she suffers and stuff, so I felt like we were going to be telling it in the right way for all the right reasons, so.
But it feels like empathy that you mentioned is the difference between the two, because if you look at how she acts with her travelling companion compared to Hawkins with his, there's a world of difference.
Yeah, I mean, it was something. We had a clinical psychologist, Dr. Elaine Barrett, who was sort of with us from the beginning during prep, and I was forwarded quite a lot of reading material about men who, I think the book was called Men Who Rape, and it was pretty horrifically eye-opening, but it taught me a lot about the, you know, men who make these sort of decisions and are damaged and tortured souls. You know, they are people who have had a very rough upbringing, or have, for whatever reason, one way or another, lost their way in life. And I think that was obviously very, very true of Hawkins. He's a, you know, a quintessential narcissist, and someone who lacks empathy, but uses everyone around him to better himself, and, you know, to get his, you know, he's incredibly ambitious. And I think there's a lot of reading material that I did that allowed me kind of for insight into a man like that. But really, it was building a backstory and truly understanding, you know, this fictional character who's based on thousands of men that have really existed and still exist, unfortunately. But it was building that backstory and understanding him on that level that I think aided me to kind of use my imagination to, you know, understand what that must be like. The one thing that I was very keen to do was to show that vulnerability, and it's sort of shown, I think, any time that someone's crying, be it the baby in the beginning or even, you know, Claire to the little boy at the end. You know, I think any time there's tears, he is sort of afraid of weakness, and it's because he himself is to push yourself beyond your limits, to know that where the limit is. You know, it wasn't only mentally and emotionally draining, it was physically exhausting. I put on 2 stone, I think, for this as well. Most of it hidden under a costume, so it was kind of pointless. Could have just put me in a fat suit, for Christ's sake. But no, it was very draining, and we were very blessed with a great and very generous, kind and respectful cast that I think we all were on a, you know, on that journey together. So I wasn't alone.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to ask about the violence and the toll of doing those scenes, because I know you did have the psychologist there throughout to kind of, you know, hopefully lessen the impact of that and lessen the sort of the stress of that on you. But you know, how is it? Because this was a tight schedule as well. You only had a certain amount of time to get this made, right? So you've got to do these very difficult scenes and then keep going, right?
Yeah, I think our shoot was 54 days or something, but Jen, even though we did have a very tight schedule, she is completely uncompromising on performance and on, you know, wanting authenticity and truth and stuff. So there was never a moment that she said, well, we're under time pressure, so we better move on. I mean, I think that scene in the cabin took us 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, we went back for a day.
Yeah, and then the scene with Billy, Claire and Ray when they meet the farmers and and the other Aboriginals, that took us about 3 days as well. So she chose her battles, I guess. But yeah, those scenes were incredibly difficult to film for everyone. But it was a very safe environment, and I certainly, people have asked me, did you feel trepidation about going into them and shooting these scenes? And honestly, Jen and I had so many conversations about exactly how we didn't want to film them, that I knew that I would be, well, safe physically. We were all, and we had this psychologist, so she would call for breaks and stuff like that. But not only that, it was really important to me that I knew, and I mean, Jen, I trust Jen completely, but we both wanted to get the message across that particularly the scenes of sexual violence and rape, that we didn't want it in any way to look like a sexual scene or a sexual act. This is not something that's being done to a body. This is something that's being done to a human being, which is why it's always on faces. Never 2 bodies in frame, no nudity. It was really important that this be from Claire's emotional perspective, and to explore going forward after that, the journey that goes through PTSD. I think frequently it's just something like a rape revenge. It's like left of the door. That's the catalyst for the rest of the movie. That's the only purpose it serves. But actually, this is the truth of what these women went through, men too, but and still today. But at this time, it was. You can't tell a story about a convict in Australia or an Aboriginal woman in Australia at this time and deny that they endured so much. And so, it was really important that we then include the PTSD that goes with that, because it's not something that just happens and then you get on with the rest of your life. It's something that is dealt with over and over again. So I find those scenes incredibly difficult, but I knew that we were telling them for what we felt was an important reason and showing them in the way that we felt was the right way to show them. So.
Yeah. And they are very much scenes about power and about him asserting power, like you said, like bullying essentially.
Also, rape and war go hand in hand all the time. It's
Yeah.
a really powerful tool of domination and of destruction and dehumanization. So it's fitting also for the larger story of this film.
Mm-hmm. I think that was the surprise for many people. They thought rape revenge drama, that was sort of the rumor that was kind of going around before you saw this film. Probably some of you here tonight had heard that it's a rape revenge drama, but it's actually not. It's much wider than that. It's much more about colonialism and those great wrongs, and not just a sort of one woman's story.
I think that really it's a friendship story, but with some very, very horrendous things that happen around it. The beating heart of this story, I think, is the relationship between Billy and Claire, and the sort of realizing that they are both, outsiders, ever free. It's I don't know. It's quite a, for me, it's quite a beautiful moment. That I think was also most important for Jen as well. She wanted to tell a very true and honest story, and so we have told the truth of a journey, but it's not that I think is the beating heart of what we try to achieve.
And I mean, there's kind of another character in the film, not to be cliched, but Tasmania itself and just the outback. What was it? What was it like shooting there? Because it seemed like you spent most of your time in a forest.
We did. Yeah, it is beautiful, and we just literally just did a podcast, and I said,
Literally just said that line.
Really? Yeah, that Tasmania is like another character in the film. It was important that Claire through's journey. It feels like the Tasmanian landscape is yet another thing for her to overcome, and it changed. We could have probably filmed in locations that were really close to Hobart, but Jen is so specific about wanting it to feel, even for the cast and crew, like a journey and finding exactly the right location. So we were frequently 2.5 hours away from literally anything. Wow. And so there was a lot of staying in like fly fishing motels and little weird Airbnbs and stuff. But it was really, really helpful. For me playing, and I'm sure even for you as Hawkins, but like playing a convict, frequently they were sent away for the pettiest of crimes, and they were sent to the other side of the world with very little hope of ever returning to the world that they once knew. And I have to say that in some of the locations where we were in Tasmania, where you could see nothing but forest as far as the eye could see, you definitely felt like you were isolated from everything and everyone that you were, that you know.
Yeah.
So it really helped, I think, and it didn't help the crew for sure. It was logistically it was a bit of a nightmare, but it definitely gave us the feeling of being in this world.
I mean, just the extreme weather conditions that we went through. I mean, there was like the hottest of hot days, in those big costumes and constantly taking coats off and like braces and then a jacket or whatever. But then there was the coldest of cold days, where you couldn't feel your hands and you could barely breathe, I mean, Aisling got hypothermia. It was last day of filming, I think.
Yes,
Yeah, we were all right. She survived. But no, I mean, it was genuinely a very treacherous terrain, and it made it. I mean, I remember there's at the beginning of the Hawkins journey with the big cart that they're trying to get through the woods. That was a logistical nightmare. I remember we were like, why did we decide to bring this cart? I mean, this is insane. But genuinely watching the guys playing prisoners sort of trying to navigate this massive cart through these roots and trees and this difficult, deep bush was actually quite humorous. There was very few laughs on set, but that was one of them.
Yeah, you take it where you can, right?
Exactly.
I have to ask, were those stunt leeches or were they real?
They were stunt leeches.
They were stunt leeches.
There had been
Stunt leech.
conversations.
I was just imagining there's a stunt team and the hero
The
leeches.
hero leech.
Yeah, we had a conversation about doing it for real. I was kind of up for it. To be honest, I wanted to do this movie so badly that I was like to Jen, just like take everything. And
Take my blood.
Yeah, they were like, you don't need to put leeches on your leg. So we stuck them on. Also, but my stunt double was like, no, I've got my leg like totally hairy, so it would be, you can put them on my leg. She was prepared to take the hit of taking the real leeches, and she like grew her leg hair and everything. But we just used fake ones.
That's inspirational. That's amazing. We have a bit of time for questions from the audience, if any of you have questions. I think we have a mic. Are you guys at back with mic? Yes. This lady here on the aisle in the third row, please.
Oh, I can speak.
Oh, you can
loud.
speak. Yeah.
First of all, I just wanted to say I actually had not heard of this film, and you said it was shot in 2016. I just want to say I was blown away. Really, really, really emotionally impacted. And I definitely, if I had been casting, I would not have cast you just like.
No, thanks.
No, but the transformation, the transformation was amazing, and you are a treasure. You are amazing. I'm an actor, but I'm just saying, people need to see it.
Thank you. I agree with you. It has come out in the States. IFC distributed in the States in August, and it's being distributed here and in Ireland on Friday. From Friday. I think, not to be like, stirring up the Martin Scorsese, things like that, but I do think that we're in a climate now where it's quite difficult for a film that A, is smaller, but B, is quite uncompromising in what it wants to say to get a very wide release. We know that some distributors were a bit like, it's a hard sell. It's a hard sell. The word sell. It's like, it's not going to be easy to get this film to make money.
It's not a Marvel movie, unfortunately.
No. And it's tricky because I think, this is my take on it too, I think we're in a time when people like things to be inoffensive and like to be categorized very easily and to not offend different people and hit 4 quadrants or whatever it is. They want movies to be quite safe. And this is not one of those films. But I'm honestly quite proud to be a part of a film that's sparking such varying reactions. But I guess word of mouth helps hugely, so that would be great. Thank you.
And the gasps in here tonight to show how it does play in cinema. The gasps were astonishing. Yes, you. Sorry, I saw you.
Hi. I was just wanting to say congratulations to both of you on your outstanding performances in the movie. That was really, really incredible. And I have a question for Sam, though you might have already kind of answered it, but I'll still ask it. So you mentioned that you approached a psychologist to help prepare for the role of Hawkins. And I wanted to know, what did you learn from the experience of playing this type of character, and would you consider doing this type of roles again in the future?
Strangely, since I've become a dad, I only seem to be playing villains now. I don't know why. Maybe it's just an excuse to let out some rage. No, but I think it's strange. Like I didn't really know that I wanted to go quite this far, and I have to say I don't think I'll ever want to go quite this far again. Yeah, it was for my mental state. Honestly, I did struggle a little bit, in all honesty, and I think we were blessed to have Elaine, Dr. Elaine Barrett, with us, because she was there as a sounding board. But I think we all had each other as well as a cast. We all went through it. Damon Harriman, who's not here today, plays Ruse, who's like my right hand man, and equally me and him constantly were kind of leaning on one another and talking it through. Really, I think we were very blessed to have a very supporting cast. But there's no way. I'm not a method actor. I don't take my work home with me. Thankfully, good gosh. But no, it's difficult to not take the feeling of the day home with you. And if you've had a very like the cabin scenes with the baby, that was a very, very like nigh on impossible 3 or 4 days. I completely lost my voice by the end of that, and I felt broken, honestly. I didn't enjoy that feeling. I'm glad I challenged myself, and I know that I can do it, if that makes sense. I know that I can, but I didn't enjoy being at that breaking point for what felt like an eternity. Like, I enjoyed the experience. I enjoyed exploring and learning about something I didn't know about before. But yeah, I think I want to enjoy my work, and I would work with Jen again. But look, to be honest, I don't think there's many characters that are as bad as this anyway. So I think the chances of me having or being offered to go that dark is quite bad. I've got a few bad people lined up, so there's more to come, but not this bad. Yeah, I hope that answers it. Thank you, Val.
Yes, the lady in red.
The thing that sort of really drew me, the heart of the film, is Claire's relationship with Billy, and sort of what we saw, how we go from sort of seeing Billy through Claire's eyes to being able to see his world more fully. I mean, how did you as actors, and how did the production as a whole sort of navigate the kind of cultural sensitivities of telling that story and showing it on screen?
That came down to Jen. Again, I've never met a perfectionist like her, and she had worked on this script for about 5 years, and she's hyper aware that, yes, there's an intersection. Obviously, she's telling the story of a white female convict, but obviously in Tasmania you can't possibly do that and ignore the fact that it's set during the time of what was known as the Black War, which became an almost, but not complete, but an almost genocide of the Aboriginal people there. And so she was aware that she absolutely needed to have an advisor on board, someone from the Aboriginal community involved right from the beginning. And so she got in touch with a man called Jim Everett, who's one of the elders in Tasmania. And he looked at the script and was like, I'm too busy, but I'm going to do it anyway. And so he was on board right from the beginning with the script. So, Jen also, because we had to, there are no full-blooded Aboriginals in Tasmania, and to play the role we had to get Bakley, who's from the Northern Territories, because we needed someone who had darker skin. And so she went and asked so many elders for their blessing and their permission. She was hyper aware of not wanting to offend and to get their blessing. And so Jim was involved right from the beginning, talking to her about the script. He was there on set every single day. He became like an uncle. I think actually Bakley ended up calling him uncle to Bakley, and he was there all throughout the editing process, everything. And one of the things I'm so proud of this film for is that it's in many ways it really isn't just an entertainment piece, particularly for the Tasmanian community the Aboriginal community in Tasmania. In Australian schools, they're taught that it was a genocide, that they don't exist. And Jim has also been an activist since the 70s and trying to get their rights to be recognised again. And he said, for us to have Palawakani, which is their language that they're trying to piece together again, he said, for us to have that on screen and to have I get really emotional about this, for us to have our language and our dances and our songs on screen to show the world, like, we're still here, we exist, and we weren't wiped out, like you guys have, whitewashed history and told that we are. That was massively important to their community and to Jim. And so I think, Jim played a huge part in making sure that we were very sensitive, but as Jen would be, because she's a very sensitive person, to that side of the story. So it was very much a team effort.
I think we've got time for one last question. Did that answer your question? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've got to say, I'm Australian and I grew up, and like you say, we were told in schools that there was pretty much just a genocide. And I want to thank you for making this film. I think it's so important for it to get out there. And I was wondering a bit more about the Indigenous consultation, whether you learnt about like the ceremony scenes in the film, what they were. Sorry.
You know, yeah.
It was actually lovely. Jen was, again, she really wanted to have a lot of, you know, their ceremonies included in what we were doing. And so before we started shooting, we had a ceremony, a smoke ceremony, and everyone was involved, and it was just so lovely. And she had Jim and his nephew actually choreograph the dances and stuff like that. I had left educating myself about the Aboriginal history till much closer to filming, just because I wanted to get into Claire's world first. But yes, then we all, you know, we were also given handbooks so that we could educate ourselves on, you know, their culture and the importance of respecting, obviously, certain things that we might not necessarily know or disrespectful to do or say or whatever. So yeah, it was definitely one of the main. It was very important to the film's production that we were all hypersensitive to that.
I'm afraid that is all the time we have tonight, but obviously The Nightingale is out on Friday this week. Please do tell people to go and see it. Thanks so much to Curzon and to Vertigo tonight, and especially thank you to Sam and Ashley. Thank you.